Okay.
We're ready to go.
David Tufaro. I live here in Baltimore City. I moved here in 1973, so I've spent my whole professional adult life in the city. Met my wife here, raised my family here, 3 wonderful daughters, and multiple dogs. And I came down here after having a joint degree in law and city planning. And it reflects my interest in planning and design. And I've pursued that interest throughout my life. And I'm a real estate developer, developed a lot of properties in Baltimore City and many other states, but most of my work product has been in the city. So I take a strong interest in the city. So when various issues have come up over the years, I've gotten involved with them.
So how do you feel about this proposal to redevelop Harborplace by MCB Real Estate?
I think it's a terrible idea for lots of levels. It's a public park. It is our, if you will, Central Park, except I think far more important to us, it's on the Inner Harbor, which is our jewel, and it compromises everything that it was intended to be when we re-envisioned it. It started in the 1950s. It was a rundown port, and people saw the need to bring it into the 20th century, if you will. And a lot of thinking and master planning went into it before they arrived at the plan that you're looking at as we're talking. And on so many levels, apartments as proposed will not activate that public space, which is the alleged purpose. It is a public space, and we have some wonderful public amenities today. Beyond the waterfront itself, we have the aquarium, we have the science center, we have Rash Field, which has been recently redone, and it is meant to be activated not just with buildings, but events. We had the city fairs here in my early days in the 70s. We have the ice skating rink today that attracts people of all ages and all neighborhoods in this city, and that's what it needs to become again. And it would be a horrible mistake, in my view, if we went forward with the plans that were released to the public on October 30th, 2023.
And how about the process itself? Like as a planner, a city planner, and also with your legal background, how do you see, or what's your opinion about the way this process is being managed?
It was very shocking, and I wrote about it in a piece that was published in the Baltimore Business Journal on October 13th. I had done a lot of research on the history of the various plans that have been generated going back to the 50s and 60s, and then more recent plans, thinking that said we need to revitalize the city again. Rebecca Hofberger, Steve Ziegler, the plan that Air St. Croix generated, and others. So we need to go through a master planning process again, getting the public involved in ideas, and then hiring professional firms to generate master plans that address both the harbor, landscape design, architecture, and then that plan gets vetted to the public. That's an essential part of the process. And they've done exactly the opposite in this case. We learned recently that these plans were in the works for years. And they told us otherwise. They said they did vetting sessions. Well, the vetting sessions didn't include these plans at all. And I think that's the shock to all of us, that the city and all the staff, city officials, and even the state government were in bed together, keeping this great secret from the public. So why? There was no surprise that would have been such a shock on October 30th when these plans were revealed, because nobody was expecting this monstrosity.
And why do you call it a monstrosity?
Because the scale is totally inappropriate. It's putting a giant in the middle of a park. That's not what we want. we want a space where people can enjoy it. And from my experience, living in the city, having my office in the city, being a developer who's developed in many cities, apartments will not activate the public space. And that's the great sin, and that's the great con job, that we spend several $100 million with a developer who was privately selected. We didn't go through a request for proposals, and we'll end up with a giant mistake that we're stuck with for 50 or 100 years. That's the tragedy. Just like the road plans back in the, I guess in the 60s, before I arrived here, where people like Barbara Mikulski got involved and neighborhood groups got involved, and they fought it, and thank God they stopped it, because it would have ruined our harbor, it would have ruined Fells Point, it would have ruined Federal Hill, which are gems in the city. They're the building blocks of what makes this a great city. It's its scale, it's historic homes across the city, not limited to the Inner Harbor, I might add. It's a city of neighborhoods, which makes it a relatively unique city and an appeal across racial groups and economic lines. Row houses are kind of the great leveling factor. You can live in a fancier 3 or 4 story row house, and you can live in a very modest 2 story row house. But there's a certain equality about it that's very special. It's one of the things that attracted me when I came to Baltimore.
So, how do you feel, or what's your opinion about the involvement of citizens in this process in terms of their rights? Do you see there is a big space for citizen voice in this process, or what do you think about that?
I think there is. I think it's the job of people like us and others to get the word out. What's involved? What's at stake for them? What's at stake for the city? We're all in different ways trying to address the fact that Baltimore City is struggling today. It's lost population, it's lost jobs. It still has great bones. There's no reason why it needs to continue to decline. And the Harborplace is not just a symbol, but it's a fact. It's an actual important element of bringing Baltimore back, making it a public space, and getting people to understand how they are part of it and how they can enjoy it. And hopefully it stimulates all the other. There are a lot of private activities going on that the citizens are not involved in. John Angelos, in the discussions with the Maryland Stadium Authority regarding the land around the stadiums, that should be part of a public process. Rethinking Pratt Street and Light Streets. Can they be redesigned to make them user-friendly and still handle the traffic? Should the convention center be moved to a place where it doesn't create dead space along a city street? Reopening the streets to activity leading from the stadiums and Russell Street all the way over to the harbor. There's so much potential in this city, and it cannot be rushed with having a project jammed down the throats of the citizens of Baltimore by a select group of people.
Thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this.
I obviously get excited about it.
It's understandable.